Throughout this course, we work with Tibbles instead of R's traditional data.frame. Tibbles are data frames, but they tweak some of the older behaviors to make life a little easier. R is an old language, and some things that were useful 10 or 20 years ago now get in your way. It's difficult to change base R without breaking existing code, so most innovation occurs in packages. Here we will work with the Tibble package, which provides opinionated data frames that make working in the tidyverse a little easier. In most places, I'll use terms Tibbles and data frames interchangeably. When I want to draw particular attention to R's built-in data frame, I'll call them data.frames. And if this part of the course leaves you wanting to learn more about Tibbles, you might enjoy the vignette Tibble. We'll get to that later. So let's get in here and start loading our tidyverse and creating Tibbles. So first we load our tidyverse. Almost all the functions that you'll use in this course produce Tibbles, as Tibbles are one of the unifying features of the tidyverse. Most other R packages use regular data frames, so you might want to coerce a data frame to a Tibble. You can do that by using as Tibble. So we have the iris data frame right here, and if we use as Tibble, it returns a 150 by 5 Tibble instead of a data frame. You can create new Tibbles from individual vectors with the Tibble command. You would automatically recycle inputs of length 1 and allows you to refer to variables that you have created as shown here. So right here we're creating a Tibble from scratch. So we call some variables and we run them, and that creates a 5 by 3 Tibble. If you're already familiar with data.frame, note that Tibble does much less. It never changes the type of input. It never converts strings to factors. It never changes the name of the variables, and it never creates row names. It's possible for a Tibble to have column names, and that's not valid in R, aka non-systatic names. For example, they might not start with a letter, or you might contain unusual characters like a space. To refer to these variables, you need to surround them with backticks. So let's take a look at how to do that here. We're creating a Tibble called TB with the column header called with a smiley face, a space, and a number. All stuff you're not supposed to do with a data frame. However, if you run this Tibble, you will see that the column headers are your smile, your space, and your number. So that's the first part of working with Tibbles. Now let's compare Tibbles to data frames. There are two main differences in the usage of Tibble versus a classic data.frame: printing and subsetting. So for printing, Tibbles have a refined print method that shows only the first 10 rows and all columns that fit on the screen. This makes it much easier to work with large data. In addition to its name, each column reports its type, a nice feature borrowed from the string function. So let's look at a Tibble first. So I've just pasted what was in my clipboard. So the first part is a Tibble, and it shows you the strings. So I've created column headers here and what the functionality is for each string. Tibbles are designed so that you don't accidentally overwhelm your console when you print large data frames. But sometimes you need more output than the default display. There are a few options that can help. First, you can explicitly print the data frame and control the number of rows and width of the data frame using the function with infinity, and it will display all the columns. So let's look at the flights data set and look at what that prints. So you can see it goes all the way across and prints all 19 columns. And we did this by setting the width to infinity. So that shows you how to control some of the behavior of the output. Now the next difference is subsetting, which we'll look at right here. Subsetting it's unique to R. So for all tools you've learned have worked with complete data frames. If you want to pull out a single variable, you need some new tools. So the $sign and the brackets can extract by name or position. Dollar only extracts by name, but it's a little less typing. So let's do our first tibble. So we're going to create this tibble called df. And if we want to pull the first x, we can run it as such. If we want to pull it by the column name, we can run it as such. And if we want to pull it by the index, we can run it as such. You can see it all returns the same data, but it returns them in a different manner. Compared to a data frame, Tibbles are more strict. They never do partial matching, and they will generate a warning if the column you are trying to access does not exist. Let's look at interacting with older code. Some older functions don't work with Tibbles. If you encounter one of these functions, use asData.frame to turn a Tibble back to a data frame. So we have a Tibble here, and I didn't do this yet. Let's type this in, class asData.frame TB. And what this does, it returns the TB data frame we created up top as a data.frame. So that gives you a good understanding of how to work with Tibbles, a good introduction. Throughout the rest of this course, we will be using Tibbles as our data frames. And now we're going to explore importing data with Reader.